back to the main page. And again, if we click on our system, we can look at the bottom where we've got some settings here for your device and your EV charger. So if we look at your device first, in here we can just see some information on the inverter, the battery, the meter, and firmware, things like that. So we can just see information of the model of the system, how much PV capacity has been installed, the output capacity of the inverter. So this is a G3S5 inverter, which is a 5 kilowatt inverter. We can see the serial number, and we can see that PV capacity again there, and the safety regulation related to this system. If we go back out and looking then into the battery information, we can again see what batteries installed. So this system's got a G3 BAT 10.1 installed, which has got a 10.08 kilowatt hour capacity, and we can use 95% of that. And it's just got the serial number of the battery there. If we've got multiple batteries, the serial numbers of those multiple batteries will show on here as well. We scroll back again, we can see the meter information. So we can see the system's not using a meter, it's using just a plug-in CT clamp for both the grid and the PV. If we're using one of our DTSU meters, that would show up here as well. Going back again, we can see the firmware, so we can see the firmware that the system's on. We can see the EMS firmware, the EMS software, the BMS software, and the inverter software version. And then there's a bit of information down the bottom about the warranty of the system. So we can see the warranty start date, when the warranty is going to expire. So we've got the product warranty and we've got the performance warranty on the batteries. So all that information's here. Going back out again, let's go and look at our EV charger settings. If we go back to the landing page, we've got a cog in the top right hand corner. If we click on that cog, we get to our function settings for our Alpha battery system. Top one we can see is the charging and discharging setting. So if we click on that first, we've got a few options here. Top of the page we can see charging stops at state of charge, or SOC. So what we can do, this button at the top that says start charging, we can just configure a one-off charge by pressing that button to charge our battery to the figure in the field above. So if I click that right now, the battery would charge to 100% state of charge and then stop and then start to discharge to cover the loads. Then going below that, we can set some cycle charging. So this customer has already got this set for a daily charging cycle. We've got the toggle switch below that enabled, and then we've got a time period. So this time period is the system is set to charge to 100% state of charge between the hours of 11:30 at night and 5:30 in the morning, and we can select the power of how much we want to charge at for the G3 range, and we want to charge to 100% between that time period up to using the power of 5 kilowatts. Something to bear in mind when we do have a charging period set on our Alpha system, if our battery gets to 100% state of charge at 1:30 in the morning, the system will not discharge until 5:30 in the morning because we're still locked in that charging period. We can add up to 6 different charging periods should we want to by clicking on the add button below. Again, any changes we make sure we press the submit button at the bottom of the page. Then if we scroll down a bit further, we've got our discharge settings. So I'm just going to enable that quickly to show you what that looks like. So this is if we only want our battery to discharge the loads, but at certain times of the day. So we might have a period of the day where we pay more for energy. So we can use this function to save the battery for that certain time of the day. This is not a feed into the grid function. Your battery will automatically discharge to cover your loads when it's outside of a charging period. So there's no need to set this if you just want your battery to discharge outside of any charging periods. And then below that, we've got our discharging cutoff SOC, or state of charge. So this is the minimum you want your battery to discharge to. So this customer's got that set to 5%. So the battery will carry on discharging to cover the loads down to 5% state of charge. We can use this function if you had the backup port connected on your Alpha system, you backing up some critical loads. So when the power if the grid was lost, the system will carry on discharging to those loads. So if we wanted to save a bit of our battery, just in case there was a power cut, we can maybe set our discharging cutoff state of charge to 20%. So it will say when the grid cuts off, the battery will then carry on discharging below that. So we've got a bit of a buffer there. And that leads us on to the UPS reserve enable below. There's a toggle switch there, which if we've got that turned on, if we did save a bit of energy in our battery, let's say 20%, so when the grid was lost, our battery would carry on discharging till it hit the minimum allowed, which is 5% on these systems. If when the grid comes back on, if we've got this UPS reserve enabled, the system will then automatically charge back up to 20% to give us our buffer again. If this toggle switch isn't on, if we've discharged fully, the battery would have to fill up either from a charge cycle or from any excess PV that might be being generated in that particular system. Any changes, again, we need to make sure we click submit on these functions. Going back then, below the charge discharge settings, we've got some generator control settings. So if you've got our off-grid system with a generator, we can control the generator to turn or on off at certain states of charge with this setting. So below that, we've got our auxiliary contact settings. So what we've got on our Alpha G3 range is an auxiliary contact that plugs in on the circuit board there. And what this is 2 volt-free relays, which we can enable on the app here, and we can decide how we want to control them. So we can just turn them on and off, or we can set them to an auto function and choose when we want those volt-free relays to turn on and off. Not many people use this. The only real function for the auxiliary contact is to turn the generator on and off in an off-grid system. But if you do think of any ways to use it, please do let us know. Then going back out again, we can get to our EV charge settings again here. So there's another route through to our EV charger settings that we just looked at previously. Below that, we've got our electricity price settings. So this is where we set our prices of how much we pay for electricity at different times of the day to help us populate our profit diagram. Top of the page, we can put in how much we've paid for the system so we can see our total investment. And then we can select our currency. And then we can choose the different prices we pay for energy at different times of the day. So this particular customer, between midnight and 5:30 in the morning, they pay 7 pence for electricity. Something important in here is that these prices are in pounds. So if you pay 7 pence at a certain time of the day, please don't put 7 in there, because in day one you may see your profit really high, and then we can change that remotely, but ideally we need to get that right first time. Then this customer's got another time set here, so from 5:30 in the morning until 11:30 at night, they pay 27 pence for electricity. And then there's a third time there where they pay 7 pence between 11:30 and midnight. We can add up to 16 different tariffs on here, depending on what sort of tariff you're on. But this customer's just got a dual tariff, so they've got those 2 fields there. Then below that, we can add how much we'd get paid to feed energy back to the grid. So this customer's just got one feed-in tariff, which is from midnight until midnight, of 15 pence. So we've got 0.15 in there. We can add up to 16 fields for that's feed-in tariff. Any changes we make, we just need to click the submit button. Okay, going back again, just below that, we've got our feeding control. So this is on selected models, and it's in selected countries. This is where we can set our battery to feed into the grid. So if we want our battery to feed into the grid, I can enable the function here. I can select how much I want to discharge my battery to. So the default here is 30%, and I can select the time I want my battery to feed in. So the setting on here right now is from midnight until 11:15 at night, and I can select the power. So if I want to only discharge my battery at 2 kilowatts, I can select it here. And again, we can put up to 6 different times here. And we can click submit, and then the battery will carry out that function should you want to maybe empty your battery to gain some additional income from the feed-in you might get from the grid. Then just down the bottom, we've got a Wi-Fi management tab that just shows how we're connected to the internet. This system's not using Wi-Fi. It's got a hardwired in Ethernet connection straight to the router, so there are no settings on here. And that is all the functions of the app, there are some tabs down the bottom for service. So if you do have any service inquiries or tickets you want to raise for your system, you can add a ticket on this field up here. There's a plus box at the top. So if you want to add any tickets, you can put the information there, add some photos maybe that you might have a query on the system, and the UK team can take a look at that and give you some feedback on what might be going on there. Going back then, that's our service tab. Then we've got some documents along the bottom. So there are some manuals on here that we might be useful for us, and some videos that we can scroll through at our leisure to see what's going on there. And then the last tab along the bottom, we've got the Me tab. So this is where I can do my Wi-Fi configuration. If I change my broadband provider, there's some further videos on that available on our website. And then we've got some different bits of information that we can scroll through. And that is the AlphaESS app.